Hey, how's it going? And today we're talking about a more advanced topic called hierarchical bias in the level sequencer. When you're working in the sequencer, you can create different levels, nested levels within each other. The top level is the main sequence that you create. And then when you create a shot track, that's basically a level beneath that. And then within the shot track, you can create another level beneath that called a subsequence. So what you can have in the sequencer is something that goes three levels down. You have the top main sequence, you can have the shot track level, which is in the middle, and then beneath that you can have a subsequence level. So you can have within the sequencers three layers of depth. What can happen is you can have one object and all three of those tracks can be referencing it. Well, Unreal Engine had to come up with a way to determine when multiple tracks are referencing one object, which track has priority over the settings of that object. What they came up with is this thing called hierarchical bias. The lower that value is, the less priority that track has. So by default, the main sequence level has a hierarchical bias of 0, meaning it has the least influence. The shot track level has a bias of 100, which means it would take priority. So if the color of the light is set on the shot track and the main level has a different color setting, the shot track's going to take priority because it has a higher value. Beneath the shot track is a subsequence, let's say, and if that subsequence also has a hierarchical bias of 100, but it also increases in value by the track above it. The shot, even though it has a bias of 100, its score is 200 because it inherits 100 points from the track above it. So what you've got is you've got three tracks with the main sequence at 0, the shot track at 100, and then the subsequence at 200. So the subsequence level is the one that would take priority. Now this all sounds very abstract, so let me give you a concrete example of this. So what we're going to do is we're going to get a point light and drag it into the scene, and we'll leave it white, and we're just going to increase its color, and then I'm just going to darken up the scene a little bit so we can see the light better. And then what we're going to do is we're going to create these levels that I'm talking about. And if you're confused, if this sounds confusing to you, you might want to watch the video in the description where I talk a little bit more about shot tracks, because it is confusing. It is confusing. And that's the reason I'm doing this tutorial, is to try to shed some pun intended light on this subject. So what we're going to do is we're going to right click and we're going to create a level sequence. And I'm going to call this main level. And we're going to double click into it. Now within this level, I'm going to create a reference to this point light. So I'm going to go to track, add to sequencer, the point light. Now once I have it selected, I'm going to go onto its colors here, and I'm going to turn it to red. And then I'm going to make a keyframe and go ahead and lock in that color. So right now we've got one level, the top level, and it has a bias value of 0. And so the color I set it is the color that I set it, everything's fine. Now let's say I want to add a shot track to this level, to this sequence. So I'm going to go to track, shot track, and now we've added a shot track, although there's nothing in it. So I've got to actually come over here and insert a shot into it. So this is a good example because it shows you that subsequences and shot tracks are all sequences. So if I come in here, I'm going to need to create a leveled sequence and make it a shot track. See? So I'm just going to call this shot track 1. Or I could have called it shot 1. Now if I come back into my main level and I come to shot, now I can add that here, and it's a shot track. It comes in as a shot track, but it's basically a sequence. And if I right click on this track, you'll see that it has a hierarchical bias of 100. See that? So that means whatever, if I keyframe in a value for this point light, so if I double click into this, now I'm in shot track, I can add this point light here. So I'm going to go to track, add to sequencer, the point light. And now that I've got it in the shot track level, which is the middle level or the second level down, I'm going to change the color to green. So now I'm setting it to green. And you'll notice, you might think, well, I thought we set it to red in the main sequence level. We did, but because the shot track has a hierarchical bias of 100, it takes priority over the main level. So now here's where things can get crazy, is we can go another level down still with a subsequence. So I'm in the shot track level right now, and I can come to track, and I can add a subsequence track now, right? But if I come here, there's nothing to add, so like I did for the shot track, I've got to go create another sequence. So let me right click and create another level sequence, and this is really going to be my sub level, so it's going to be number 3 down on the list. So I come down here, I can add it now, that sequence here, sub level. Now if I double click into it, I can add the point light to its, and I go here to track, add a sequencer, the point light, and now I'm going to set it to blue. So now the light is blue. And you might think, well, how is this working? Well, the main level has a bias of 0, so it has the least impact, the least influence. The shot track is 100, but the sub level has, not only does it have a value of 100, but it also inherits the 100 from the shot track above it. So it has a hierarchical bias of technically 200. So it's 0, 100, 200. The sub-level having the highest value, its settings take priority. It's confusing now. If I go back into the main level here, there is no hierarchical bias adjustment here. I'm in the main level, and here's the shot track. If I click on it here, I can adjust the hierarchical bias for the shot track. To adjust the hierarchical bias for the subsequence, I've got to go into the shot track level. And now here, if I click here and come up to properties, if I were to drop this value down to, let's say, -50, since its score has dropped now, we look at all of our values here. So here's our 3 levels, right? So this has a value of 0. This has a value of 100. And normally this has a value of 200, but I subtracted essentially 150 from it. So now its score is 50. So now the shot track level has the highest hierarchical bias. It's trippy, right? So now if I come back into this level, back up here, I got to go on the shot track level and adjust the hierarchical bias back. Well, I'm just going to adjust it to 0. You'll start seeing the colors start blending now because there's no clear winner. But if I come onto the main level here to adjust the shot track and put it at 0, the light should turn white because nobody has priority now. So if I come here and come here, the bias is 0 here, the bias is 0 here, the bias is 0 here. So what is that means? Red, green, and blue combined make the color white. Interesting, huh? So if you can get your mind around this, you've come a long way toward understanding the sequencer. So I hope it helped you. I know this helped me, this little exercise. So anyway, take care, have a great day, and I'll talk to you next time.